Hello, everybody. My name is Tel, and I work for Sharp. I used to be a maths teacher, but I ran away a long time ago. I just want to show you a couple of really cool things that I bet you didn't know you could do on the Sharp EL-W535SA. So our plan for today is to go through these things. It should take us no more than half an hour. And then if you do have any questions, I will share my email address with you at the end of this session. So the calculator that we're looking at is the Sharp EL-W535SA. It comes in these beautiful colors, and it's got over 420 functions. And so there's some really nice things that we can do, particularly for Mathslets on this calculator. So these are various links that I will share with Christo, and he can then pass this on to you guys as well. And you can, some of the really nice ones that are particularly great for Mathlets is our 535 simulator, which I'm going to use throughout this presentation and which you can download for free off our Maths at Sharp website. Then GeoGebra is always great for graphs. Worksheets, maths@sharp.co.za has got lovely math literacy worksheets that we've created, which are also free to download. And then, of course, you can download the ATP documents and visit our support group. So take a look at this. This is the Sharp EL-535 and just some very important buttons to take a look at. Obviously, the on button is important. The second function button over here, that orange one, that is used to activate any of the orange functions on your calculator. So you'll see there's orange and blue writing above the buttons with the white writing on it. Your alpha button activates the blue writing, and that is often used with your statistics and memory keys. Then you've got a mode button, and there are 4 different modes, which I'll share with you in a minute. And underneath mode is a button that says BS, and that is for backspace. So when you want to delete something, or you've accidentally typed in the wrong thing, then you can press the backspace button. Now down here below is change, and change will just change the way that your answer looks. So between mixed, improper, and decimal answers. And then, of course, the equals button, which will help solve world peace when we're talking about maths. So modes, the mode button and gives us 4 different modes on the Sharp EL-535SA. And so this is the normal, stat, table, and drill. So normal does things like fractions, probability, it does percentages. I'll show you how to work out VAT using the normal mode. Then stat does your basic statistics, and we'll just briefly go through how to use that to find your median and your mean. And some other interesting values. And then, of course, table we'll use as a function. But what we can do is actually use it to teach break-even finance, which is what I will show you today, or break-even graphs. And then, of course, drill is just to practice your mental maths. So go and have a look at that and see what it does. So the first thing that I want to share with you is the teacher shortcut class marks. And I'm going to use my calculator to show you this. So let's say, for example, you set a test which is out of 70. And you would like to convert all of those test marks into something out of 100. So at the top of your fraction, this is the fraction button over here, your A/B, you can see it highlighted. At the top of your fraction, you're going to type in whatever you want to convert to. So we want to convert to a total out of 100. At the bottom of your fraction, so just use your down arrow key to get there, you put the total that your test is currently out of, which we said was 70. And then you're going to press your right arrow key and you're going to say times, and you put your first student's mark in. So your first student, for example, got 40 out of 70. So you type in 40, press equals, and you will see that it gives us 57 and 1/7%. Now, this is where the change button is amazing. So if you just press change, it will give you the decimal, which is 57.14%, and we can round that off to 57. That was the hard part. The next step is to simply type in your next student's mark. So say, for example, the next student got 55 out of 70. So you type in 55 and you press equals, and you can see they got 78 and 4/7, or 78.5%, or 79%, depending on how you round off. All right, so then the next student got 23, so 23 equals, and they got essentially 33%. And what's really great here is for your entire class list, you just keep typing in marks and pressing equals, and the calculator will keep doing that calculation for you. So you don't have to keep typing in the full thing, you just type in the mark. So mark equals, mark equals, mark equals, and you are done. So it's a really nice shortcut, particularly in the marking season that's coming up. All right. So what's really nice about the sharp calculator is we've actually added a recurring decimals function. Okay. And so let me show you how that works. So for example, we have 61 divided by 7. Now, what would happen is you would get this answer as a fraction, and then you would have the improper fraction. And if I press change, you would get this long fraction. And you can see 714285 and then 714 again repeats. So how do we set it up so that it shows us that it is a recurring decimal? So we're going to press setup, and we're just going to press down, more to show you than is actually necessary. Choose 5 for recurring decimal and press 1 for on. Now, when I change it, you'll see that it gives me the recurring version as well as the normal decimal version so that you can see the full length of that answer to 9 decimal places. All right. So from there, we can also change the way that answers are displayed. So for example, we often work with decimals in math literacy as opposed to fractions. And so what we would like is for the answer to first be displayed as a decimal, and then if we need it, to change it to a fraction. So to do that, we're again going to use setup, and this time we're going to choose 2 for editor, and we're going to choose 0 for right view. Line is essentially the way the old calculators were written, so all in one line, as opposed to writing it as you would see it in a fraction, like right view. So exact is how your calculator is currently set up, and it will give you the surds, will give you the fractions, etc., which is what you're seeing now. But if we want to change it so that it shows us the decimals, we use approximate. And that is because essentially it rounds off to 9 decimal places. And so that's why they call it approximate. All right, so let's test ourselves. Here we've got 61 divided by 7. Now remember last time it gave us 8 and something else. So here it will just give us the decimal first. And again, we can change it to see the fraction. So you still have the fractions. It's just not your first answer that you're going to see. So it's really nice for when the learners are working with stuff like money or rounding off decimals and that sort of stuff as well. Okay, to go back to the way it was set up before, you can press setup, 2 for editor, 0 for right view, so exactly the same, except now you're going to choose exact instead of approximate. All right, now for rounding off, again, we can set it up so that the calculator rounds off your any decimal answer to 2 decimal places for you. Okay, so to do that, again, I'm going to just go get my calculator. We're going to press setup and then choose 1 for FSE, which stands for fixed scientific and engineering notation. So 1. And we're going to choose 0 for fixed notation. In other words, we want to set or fix the number of decimal places to 2 decimal places. So now you can see automatically it pops up like this. So let's say I have 3.658 divided by 3. What we'll see is the fixed notation, because you had the recurring decimal and now you have the fixed notation, and you can see that it rounded it off. So there's 219, and now after the recurring decimal, we get 22. So there's your fixed notation as well. All right, so squares, cubes, and roots. Very simple and easy to do on the calculator. So again, very quickly, we can just say 2 and the squared button is there, and equals. Now you'll see my decimal places are fixed. If I wanted a cube, 3, and then just second function, and the cube is on the RCL button. So there we go, and equals will give us 27, and then of course square root of 16 will give us 4. If we want to change back from fixed to just our regular number system without any of the decimal setup, then we can just go setup 1 for fixed, scientific, and engineering, and we just choose the normal one, which is 3. And so now you can see that it just goes back to the regular way that the answers are shown. All right, to add fractions, again, very, very easy and simple. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways just so that you can see. So say, for example, we want to add 4/5 and 2/9. So here I'm going to first press my fraction button and then type in 4, press down, type in 5, press your right arrow key. And now, plus, I'm going to show you the short method. So the short way is to first type in your numerator, then press the fraction button, and then press your denominator. Now, if you have a mixed number fraction, you have 2 options as well. So the first is to first press your whole number and then say second function and fraction, and that will just glue the fraction onto your whole number for you. Or alternatively, you can write your fraction first and then go back and add in the whole number. And instead of multiplying it out, it will add the whole number as you would see it here. So we think that this is 5 3/9, and that's exactly what the calculator thinks as well. So it's very easy to use with the calculator. And so if I say equals, you'll see there's your solution. We can just change it to all the things that we would need, depending on what solution we're asked for, or what form of the solution we're actually asked for. So percentages, also such a great and easy way to do percentages on here. So for example, let's say we want to add 15% VAT to 120 Rand. So we're going to just say plus 15 and then second function and 1. And then we can see that the 15% has been added. If I want to know what 15% of 120 is, I would just say 120 times 15, second function 1. That gives me 18. And 18 plus 120 is 138, which is the answer that we had previously. Okay. If I want to say 120 minus 15%, so I'm giving a discount of 15%, then I would just say minus second function and 1, and that gives us 120 minus 18, which is 102 Rand. Now, the hardest part is actually to find the original amount before that was added. And so to do that, what we say is, I'm going to use 138 just so that you can see. We would say divided by 115 second function percent. And so you'll see that this is 120. Because remember, 120 was your original amount, and 138 is 120 plus 15%. So that's 115%. So in order to go back to the original, we need to divide by the bigger amount that we had. Alrighty. So we do have a lot of memory keys, which is great and super helpful. And so we can store anything into any memory key simply by pressing store and A. Then what will happen is that 120 is now saved into your A memory key. If we want to check what is saved in our memory keys, we can say alpha and 9. And you can see now that the only memory key that has a value other than 0 is actually A, which we saved as 120. So it's really nice to be able to go back and say, okay, that's what's in that key and that's what's in that key. So now I know what to do with it. Now you can also set up your calculator so that you can change it between a point, which is over here, or a comma. And to do that, we just say setup. And again, we're going to look at 0.6, which is decimal points. And we can choose between a dot and a comma. So if we want a comma, we just say 1. And now you can see it's a comma there instead. This is simply an aesthetics thing, and really up to you how you use it with your learners. The other really nice thing that Sharp does differently is the thousand separator. And so whenever you see an answer, I'm just going to show it here on the screen, you can see that it is separated by a comma. So 45,600. So it makes reading the numbers a lot easier. And I find, particularly with learners who struggle with big numbers, this is a big, big help to show them how to read the numbers and what the actual value of the number is. Okay, so let's talk about break-even analysis. And to do that, I'm going to go and use my table. To get to my table, I press Mode and 2 for table. Now, let's say, for example, it costs me 500 Rand to rent equipment, and it costs me, what are we doing? Making cupcakes. Okay, so it costs me 500 Rand to rent the mixing bowls and an oven for the morning or whatever it is. And it costs me 20 Rand per cupcake that I make for all of the ingredients. Okay. So in function 1, I'm going to put in my cost equation, 500 Rand for the rent plus 20 Rand per cupcake that I make. And we'll just put in an X to represent the number of cupcakes. Now, my profit equation says that I'm charging people 40 Rand a cupcake. Okay, so in other words, my income is 40 Rand, so 40 times X, and I'm going to press equals. Now you can see start and step. So we're starting at 0 cupcakes, and we're going to count in 1 cupcake each, just to see how it would work, okay? And so here you can see, if I have made 0 cupcakes, then I have made no money, and I'm out 500 Rand. If I make 1 cupcake, it costs me 20 Rand. So 520 Rand, and I make 40 Rand. So I'm still down 520 minus 40, which is 480. Okay, and so what we're actually looking for is the point when the answer 1 and the answer 2 column are exactly the same. And we can just scroll down our table. Because your Sharp calculator table is unlimited, you don't need to worry about finding an end. It will just go until you basically get bored. So there we go. So can you see that it would take us 25 cupcakes before we made the same amount of money that it cost us to make those 25 cupcakes? When we make 26 cupcakes, we've now made 20 Rand because it cost us 1,020 Rand, but we made 1,040 Rand. So I'm now finally in the green, as they would say. And you can now see when you would start making money. So some really nice questions is, okay, guys, if I need to make 500 Rand in profit, how many cupcakes do I need to make? So now we can just scroll down and take a look and say, okay, we need a difference of 500. There we go. So I would need to make 50 cupcakes in order to make 500 Rand for myself after paying 1,500 Rand out in cost of cupcakes. So it's a really nice way for doing break even. And in fact, you can use this with all sorts of things like tariffs and so on and so forth. So here again, here's your tariff. Okay, so you pay 95 cents per minute on a phone call, and then we can just see how much it would cost. Now, sometimes there would be a rental fee involved in that, and so you could do a comparison between the two. So when is it cheaper versus when is it more expensive per call, and so on and so forth. Let's talk about interest. So when we learn about interest in grade 9, we learn the formulas for simple and compound interest. Okay, so the simple interest formula says that if I invest 1,000 Rand at an interest rate of 5%, so I'll just do 5 over 100, right, per year. And what I'll do, instead of writing in a number of years, I'm going to put it in an X because I want to see how it grows. Okay. Let's delete that one. It's not relevant. Okay. Again, we'll start and step at 0 and 1. And so now we can see, okay, when I started out, I had 1,000 Rand. After 1 year, I now have 1,050 Rand, which means that my money grew by 50 Rand. We can see after 2 years that my money has grown by 100 Rand. So again, it increased by 50 Rand. And if we continue, we can see that it continues to grow by 50 Rand every year, which is pretty slow. So after 10 years, we've only gained 500 Rand. Okay, so that's simple interest. Now, what we can also do is look at compound interest. And so what I'll do is I'll add the compound interest in to my function 2. Okay, so leave this one as it is. So I'm just going to press equals. And in function 2, I'm going to type in 1,000, open brackets, 1 plus, again, let's just use 5% so that we have an accurate comparison. So 5 over 100. And now with compound, we put it to the power of x. Okay, so there's my compound interest formula. And if I say equals now, again, leave start and step as they are. So equals equals. Now we can compare. So in both accounts, we started off with 1,000 Rand. And after 1 year, both accounts have 1,050 Rand. So that makes no difference. When it does start to make a difference is in year 2. Can you see that we've had an extra 2.50 Rand in our accounts? And so we can see from here, now we have an extra 7 Rand 62 cents or 63, depending on how you round off. And here we have an extra 15 Rand and 51 cents, and so on and so forth. So you can see it's starting to grow quite a bit faster. Here we've got almost an extra 100 Rand. So after 10 years where we've only gained 500 Rand in simple interest, we've gained 628 Rand and 89 cents, which is 128 Rand more. Now, the amazing thing about compound interest is how much faster it grows. And so you can ask your students, okay, when does your money double? When does it triple? When are we going to, if we need to reach a certain amount, how long will it take us? So for example, if I saved this 1,000 Rand for 30 years, in my simple interest, I'd only have 2,500 Rand. But after 30 years, I now have 4,321 Rand and 94 cents. So I've got 1,800-ish Rand more than I have in the simple interest, which is quite a substantial difference if you're thinking about it. Now we know with MathLit that they don't actually like us to use the formulas, and they want the learners to do it by themselves. And so I'll show you the steps to do it manually as well. But I do think both methods are valid and important for students. Okay, so if we wanted to calculate simple interest manually, let's say, for example, our initial investment is 1,500 Rand, and we get 7% per year, so times 7%. So we get 105 Rand every year, right? And so what will happen is we will just say 1,500 plus 105 Rand. Okay, and that gives us, and then we'll just keep adding 105 because with simple interest, we always get the same amount. And so if I keep pressing equals, it creates a constant, and we can then see how long it will take us to get to 4,000 Rand or whatever the question is asking us for. We can also do a similar method with compound interest. However, this time I'm going to show you a shortcut first before I do that. So you have these keys here, D1, D2, D3, okay? These are called user-defined shortcut keys. In other words, they're to help you save functions that you use a lot that require 2 or more buttons. For example, the percentage button. So what I would do is actually store into my D1 key second function 1. And now, whenever I need a percentage, I can just press D1. Okay, it's not going to work here. So again, let's say we initially invested 1,500 Rand and we add 7%. So instead of saying second function 1, which is the long way around, I can just say plus 7 and press the D1 key. And then I can say plus 7 D1 key, plus 7 D1 key, and so on. And you'll see that again, it's a slightly longer method than the simple interest because the simple interest is quite straightforward. This is your compound. You need to take 7% of the previous amount. So you don't have that same amount being added every time. So to create the pattern, you would need to add that 7% every time. But it's nice to see, okay, here are all the values that I have. Okay, so after year 1, after year 2, after year 3, after year 4, and so on. Okay. We've gone through that already in this demonstration, but just as a refresher, these are the steps. And so let's look at time. Okay, so We're going to go home, not you. On the calculator, there's a button that says home. And so that just takes us back to normal mode from whatever other mode we were in before. Now, let's say, for example, we're asked to convert 489 minutes to hours. Okay, so what we would do is say 0, press the DMS key. It's underneath your BS button, DMS, and then type in 489 and press equals. And what the calculator does is it calculates your hours, which is 8 hours and 9 minutes. Now, if we wanted to write that as a fraction, we could simply say second function DMS, and that will just convert it as a fraction or to a decimal for us as well. Really easy, right? The next time function that you can do is the traveling time. How long does it take to travel at a certain speed per kilometers or whatever? Okay, so let's say, for example, I decided to actually come and see you guys. So I'm in Joburg. And so you are in Freiburg. And so what we could do then is say, okay, Freiburg is 450 kilometers away. And I am tired today, so I'm only going to do an average of 102 kilometers per hour. Okay, so I would then say equals, and it will give me 4 hours and something, 4,4 hours. All right. But I can also then say second function DMS, and that now tells me 4 hours, 24 minutes, and 42,35 seconds. So very, very easy on the calculator to do. All right. The last thing that's super helpful for Mathlet in terms of the time calculation is the Susie train station question. So Susie gets on the train at 9:45. She gets off at 12:30. How long was she on the train for? So we're going to say our later time first, which is 12 DMS 30. And it was 9:45, so it's 9 DMS 45. And we just say equals, and it tells us 2 hours and 45 minutes. Now we can also then say second function DMS to again give it to us as a decimal or a fraction. Okay. Remember that I will put this video onto our YouTube channel as well, so you can go and have a squiz there if you get stuck. And I will share this presentation with Christo as well, so that you guys can have a look and see. All right, so for statistics, we're going to talk about univariate data here, and that's basically the only sort of data we deal with in Mathlets anyway. So mode and 1 for stat, and we're just going to use single data. In other words, Mary's maths box or whatever sort of suits you. Okay, so I'm going to type in random numbers here. 96. So just number equals, number equals, number equals. Let's just do. Okay, so let's say, for example, I made a mistake here, and this 16 is not actually supposed to be 16. It's supposed to be 61. So what I do is I just use my arrow keys to highlight the 16, type over it 61, and press equals, and the calculator will just overwrite it for you. So it's very, very easy to fix mistakes if they happen. Okay, we can go back up and check. Okay, everything else looks right. Okay, great. Once I'm done with my data and inputting it, I can then press change or on. Both work. So change is nice because it flicks between your calculation screen, which is this current one, and your data screen. So you can go back and add new things, etc. Okay. We are looking for the mean and all the other good stuff. So we're going to say alpha and 8 for stats. And then we're going to just choose 0 for statistics values. And what you'll see is it will give you a summary. Okay, so in a number of observations is 7, your average is 59, that's not important, that's not important. And then, of course, your 5-number summary. Minimum, quartile 1, median, quartile 3, and your maximum value as well. So it's all there in summary for you, and you just now need to go and do the box and whisker plot that's required. Super easy, right? All right, the last thing that I want to share with you today is probability, and that's just a fun thing that you can use to play with probability. So again, I'm just going to press home, and we'll go to normal mode. Now on your calculator, you have a random function. So you can say second function 7, and you'll see you have these 4 options. So random, or option 0, has random decimal numbers between 0 and 1 to 3 decimal places. I like to use that for setting up my own questions. Very helpful when you keep using 72 and 89. And then you've got a dice, which is 1 to 6. A coin, which is a math coin, so that does 0 or 1 instead of heads and tails. It's the same probability. And then, of course, your random integers. And that's really nice because you can create your own parameters. So, for example, let's say I wanted to play the lottery with my students. So here, the lottery has numbers between 1 and 52. So I can say 1, x comma y, and then just 52. Whoops, that's what backspace is for, those whoopses. And then 52 and say equals, and equals. And now I've generated a list of random numbers that could have come out of the lottery ball machine. We don't know. And so now you can actually get your learners to play the lottery with you in class as a demonstration of probability and how it works. Of course, you can also do the dice and the coin as well. There's a lot of fun things to do, especially in terms of games for probability. All right. So thank you so much for your time and for listening to me today. I hope that you found this workshop helpful and that you'll enjoy using your calculators. Remember to visit maths@sharp.co.za to get all of your free worksheets. They are available on the Worksheets tab, which is next to the Students tab. And then, of course, you can download the simulators. So on your home page, if you just use your arrow keys, you can see here there's little arrows. Just press the right arrow key until you find this picture and click on download now. And then you can use the same calculator that I just used with you on your computer, which is pretty cool. All right, guys, have a super one and give me a shout if you have any questions.